In this video guide, I'm going to give you an intermediate strategy for making tons of gold in Diablo 3 with little time investment. This is sort of a follow-up video to my gem video where I showed players how they can just buy flawless squares, turn them into radiant stars to make about 1,000,000 gold apiece. That's still a very effective and reliable strategy. The problem is it becomes less appealing as you get rich in the game. So if you have, 20 million gold, and that's it, making 10 million gold a day crafting gems, which is very possible and very easy, is a very appealing proposition. Every day you're making enough gold to get a new upgrade. It's very appealing. The problem is, what about once you've already upgraded your gear into a good, mid-inferno, mid-monster power level set, and it starts to get very expensive to upgrade your gear? For example, my character needs about 500 million gold to upgrade its weakest slots. That's not a brag, that's just saying that even if I do make 10 million gold a day crafting gems, it requires 50 days of that just to get enough gold to make one upgrade. It's not worth it at all. So what I've done is come up with a strategy that requires you to have a little bit more or a lot more gold to get started, but also requires a lot less of your time. Even though gems can be crafted AFK, you still need like 10 minutes a day to buy supplies, convert those into radiant stars, actually list those on the auction house, get your gold back. That takes time. So if you're doing that every day for 2 months to get one upgrade, you just spent 6 hours crafting gems and, doing the micromanagement stuff 10 minutes a day for 60 days. And that's just not very appealing to me. So what I've done is I've come up with a strategy that works well for people with a little bit more gold that have already done the gem crafting strategy, found a lucky drop, doesn't matter. And how this works is that all you do, we're going to use gems again because they're more, I understand buying and selling items can be very profitable. I've done it before, made a lot of gold, but I know players really struggle with identifying which items are underpriced and which ones aren't. So in lieu of that, I like to do gems because there's no room for user error. And as you can see, if I Google flawless squares, you get a price. So that's very low. I feel like every time I make one of these videos, I always see like really cheap gems pop up. I've already spent most of my gold, and you'll see why in a minute. Nope, someone already snagged them. But, okay, there we go. Yeah, I just got some virtually free gems. So that does happen once in a while, but don't count on it. We'll see what else we can get here. Okay, so free gems are gone. That was just an oddity, but, I could turn around and sell these for 2 or 3 million gold. And that's a quick 2 or 3 million gold. But that's not the strategy. The strategy here is that over time, the price of gems goes up and down. What happens is when gems are expensive, players start picking them up. They're like, oh wow, gems are expensive. I should start picking those up again. So eventually, more people start picking up gems. People that have been holding their gems start selling them, and the price starts to come down. Well, eventually the price comes down low enough that people stop picking up gems or hold their gems and think, oh, I'll just wait for the price to go back up before I sell these. So right now, the prices are definitely at a low. About 2 weeks ago, one flawless squared ruby was about 10,000 gold. Sometimes as low as 8, sometimes as high as 11,000. So what I've done is pick the gems that I thought were cheapest, mostly topazes and rubies, and bought them at a certain price point. So right now you can see that I've actually lost a little bit of gold here. I paid about 600 gold per topaz, 600 to 700, and about 3,800 to 4,000 gold per ruby. And I'm just going to actually sit on these, and it could take a week or two before the price catches up. But if we go to our calculator, if you paid 4,000 gold for a ruby and sold it for 10,000, there'd be 6,000 gold left over in profit. After the auction house fee, you'd make a most about 5,000 gold per sale. Well, as you can see in my auctions are completed, I've sunk about 500 million gold into gems. So per ruby, I've made about 40,000 of those. If the prices go back up to 10,000 gold, I'm going to wind up with 200 million gold profit. And the amount of work I put into this is nothing. I just bought the flawless squares, and that's it. I needed the gold to do it, but I'm just going to hold these. And if you hold these in your box here, you get to have a huge storage. You know, they're all not going to fit in your inventory. And I did even more, probably spent even more on topazes, buying about 100,000 or maybe even 200,000, I think is about more accurate, at 700 gold apiece. So I spent about 140 million gold, is that right? Yeah. And I hope to sell those for double that. I think that the price can get back up to 1,400 gold apiece. And once it does, I'll unload all my topazes, and I'll go from 140 million gold invested, 280 million in sales, take the 15% off. I'll once again make about 100 million gold, and I didn't do anything. I just sat on my money. And the reason this works so well right now is because there's nothing in the development pipeline for Diablo 3. The developer said that don't expect the itemization patch to come out until after BlizzCon. BlizzCon is in November, so it's now June. And I mean, even if you're watching this later, this strategy still works. I would just caution you to not listen to what I'm saying in terms of what the prices are. So right now, in my experience, rubies tend to bottom at this price, or they've already gone up from the 2,800. Rubies don't tend to stay under 3,000 gold. Emeralds don't tend to stay under 2,000 gold, whereas topazes and amethysts do not usually sit under 500 gold, and they are slightly under 500 right now. This is a really good deal. If I had more money, I'd be buying more and more of these, because again, most players are not going to click on an item that's only worth 400 to 500 gold. It's not worth their time. You can kill a monster and get a 2,000 gold pile. You're not going to run around and stop what they're doing. So one thing I do want to discuss is what exactly drives this dynamic. So there's two things that influence the price of flawless square gems. Obviously, aside from supply, two other factors. So the first factor is the price of a radiant star gem, which right now is pretty good for a topaz. Once it's, as this price goes up, people are more willing to pay more for flawless squares because they make more gold when they convert those into radiant stars. The other factor that a lot of people don't realize is the Tome of Secrets. Right now and lately, Tomes of Secrets have been very expensive. 4 Tomes of Secrets anyway. A couple weeks ago, when gem prices were spiked, flawless squares were up, these were available for 300 gold apiece. And you actually need 1,600 Tomes of Secrets to make 1 Radiant Star gem with flawless square gems, whereas you only need 729 flawless square gems. So the point is that Tomes of Secrets are actually a bigger influence on the price of a Radiant Star than a flawless square. Every 100 gold the Tome of Secrets costs extra, it's like 160k extra that the craft costs. So since Tomes of Secrets have gone from 300 gold to 1,100 gold, that's up almost like an extra 1.5 million added to the crafting cost to make a Radiant Star gem. Since Radiant Star gems haven't gone anywhere, the only option in price, they've been pretty consistent this whole time, the only option is for flawless squares to lose value. Because if Tomes of Secrets go up, no money to be made crafting flawless square with flawless square gems, the flawless square market bottoms out because no one buys them. So we're kind of looking one step ahead here. So as Tomes of Secrets go up, flawless square gem prices go down. Well, the opposite dynamic happens with these Tomes of Secrets that happens with flawless square gems. So what I mean by this is that if Tomes of Secrets go up in value and start being worth, 1,000 gold plus, players start picking them up again. Because that's like about where I would consider where most people that aren't bots consider that's a good value. Whereas when people are picking these up, like players like myself who would normally ignore these when they're cheap, that's all this extra supply is coming into the economy. So players stop picking up the cheap flawless square gems, they continue to pick up Tomes of Secrets, what happens is the Tomes of Secrets market starts crashing. Once the Tomes of Secret market crashes, suddenly there's a big spike in the value of flawless squares. The reason is people now can buy Tomes of Secrets cheaper. They can afford to spend more money on flawless squares to make Radiant Star Gems. That is, of course, assuming that the Radiant Star Gem market is consistent. If the Tomes of Secrets fall and this falls too, obviously the flawless squares will not spike as quickly. But the same dynamic happens with the Radiant Star. If there's no profit to be made in crafting Radiant Star Gems, people will stop crafting them. Players still want these, so the supply dries up, the price stays elevated. So rarely sometimes you see the Radiant Star Gems going down or up in value, but it typically tracks based on the Tomes of Secret and flawless square cost. So I like to look at those two. So the best part about the strategy is that when flawless square gems are cheap, Tomes of Secrets are expensive. When Tomes of Secrets are expensive, flawless square gems are cheap. So right now, I put all this money into flawless square gems, and when the price goes up, I'll sell them. The thing is, though, when the price of flawless square goes up and I get my money back, these should be pretty cheap. I'll then take all that money I just made, buy tons of Tomes of Secrets, about like 100,000 at a time, and I'll probably buy a couple million a couple million if I can afford it. If these were just 300 or 400 gold apiece, this would be a lot more this would be a lot smaller number. And then once the cycle went back, I would just keep going back and forth and doing this over and over again. And as I was mentioning the updates before, the reason this is an appealing proposition is because, one, I can't do really anything with my gear anyway. It's already pretty good, so I have nothing to spend my money on. I want like the pieces of gear that I drool over, not literally, but you know what I'm saying, are a billion gold or more. So what's the point in sitting on 700 million gold if I could easily convert it into a billion gold or 2 billion gold by buying and selling? Like I said, I don't really foresee myself needing this gold anytime soon because the next content patch is probably not going to come out till around Christmas. And if you're watching this video in the future, just keep that in mind. You might not want to tie up your gold, if you know a patch is coming out that's going to change the economy. Check the PTR, check the D3 site. But for the next couple months at least, D3 will be pretty static. So I don't expect this dynamic to change. You never know when like a little patch is going to mess things up, like the gold deep or whatever. That temporarily spike gem prices, and you never know, people are going to smell deep gems and trash them gem prices. So there is a little bit of risk involved, but just play. The whole thing is here, we're playing the long game. It only takes 5 minutes to buy gems in large quantities. Buy them out over a couple of days, so you hit the saturated market a couple times, and once you do that, you'll be you just hold. It might take a couple weeks for the price to go up, but I'm sure it will go back up, and when it does, I'll make my money back. The only thing with that is there's one asterisk. I don't have proof of this, but I'm fairly certain. Or not fairly certain, there's a good possibility that Blizzard encourages this price spiking by tweaking drop rates. This is obviously, I know random number generator is random, but when these were 10,000 gold, I felt like I very rarely saw a flawless square ruby, whereas now when I've played the last couple Paragon levels, I've been getting them constantly. I found like 20 or 30 in a level or two, whereas opposed to literally going a whole hour of playing and not seeing a single one. It could be random loot, but I suspect that it is based on the price, because the reason I suspect this is because when the game first released, Blizzard said that they monitor the auction house and change drop rates based on what they see. And of course that post has been since deleted, but I clearly remember it. So what I'm thinking is that once the Tome of Secrets price spikes, Blizzard increases the drop rate here, and once the price crashes, they tighten the drop rate up. It kind of keeps a value in the economy. So I've noticed a lot of rubies lately, and the price has tanked. I don't think that's a coincidence. But the thing is, though, once this price tanks to where people stop picking up gems, which Blizzard can track in their thing, they'll start bumping the drop. They'll start tightening the drop rates up. Again, I don't know that that happens. Whether or not it happens just exacerbates the cyclical nature of the market. It gives it an artificial bottom and artificial top. But regardless of whether Blizzard does that or not, players still have a big influence over the cyclical nature. I don't think the cyclical nature will go away because when prices drop, players stop picking up gems. When prices go up, they start picking up gems. The demand remains constant, so the price is naturally going to change. So give this a try. It does work. And if you have a ton of gold, and another alternative one to use is, which I have done successfully, is fiery brimstones. So right now, I've noticed that the lowest price these go is about 4,000, but I've seen them go as high as 9,000. So the thing with brimstones is, the market's a little less saturated. Well, there's just less demand, I should say. Sorry about that, had a hiccup. So because there's less drivers to move the market price up and down, it's a little more steady. One cool thing to do with this, though, is you can just hold some brimstones if you're looking to, like, quote-unquote diversify once they're cheap like this. And sometimes it'll spike up to 6,000 or 7,000, and you'll make like 10 to 20% on your money. But I feel like Blizzard is always trying to find a better use for these, and their price can really skyrocket when Blizzard changes things. And one thing to consider is that they keep mentioning in their posts that they want to make legendaries drop less frequently but be better. So if legendaries suddenly drop less frequently, that means there's less fiery brimstones. Suddenly this price skyrockets. So you can't always buy some of these when they're cheap. Hold on to them, expect to hold on to them for a long period of time though, if you want more than 10 or 20% back on your money. And if they spike up 20 times, well, you can turn 35 million gold into a couple billion gold. And it's another strategy to consider. I'm definitely going to be doing that once, later. I'd rather roll through the gem market a few cycles first, and then, start adding these on to speculate with once we get closer to 1.09. So that's it for this video. I hope this helped you, and it is definitely a good way to make money.